From Fox 8 Sports, this is the Overtime Podcast.
From the Fox 8 studios in New Orleans, it's the Fox 8 Overtime Podcast. I'm Vasilios. That is Sean Fazende. Remember to like, subscribe, rate, and review. You guys can find us wherever you listen to and watch your podcast. And if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you hit the little bell notification button. You get an update every time we upload a new podcast. Sean, welcome back. It was a very restful bye week, not just for the Saints, but for us as well.
I enjoyed it. I really did. I had a few days off. I unplugged. I took the Thursday through Sunday off. I went to a friend of ours' place in Mississippi, hung out, had a fantastic meal at a restaurant out in Mississippi, then watched football all day Sunday. I enjoyed every last bit of that bye week. It really was well-timed. It just felt like it was a good time to unplug. Now you got the back stretch here, the back 7 games. I feel good. I hope the Saints feel good. Yeah. The way the schedule played out, it was a good time for a bye week. I enjoyed myself. Hopefully the Saints are able to hopefully they reset, regrouped, refocused, and hopefully they're ready for this back run here.
All right, so big news today, and we kind of caught us in the middle of taping our Fox 8 Overtime show for tonight. Michael Thomas headed to the injured reserve. He's probably going to be a designated to return candidate after a few games. Sean, what do you make of this whole move here?
Well, first off, he was the second play of the game against Minnesota, catches that slant, takes a helmet to the knee, doesn't play again, seen on the sideline. Visible, very visible in a ball cap, but clearly not able to play. And then it went from that to second opinions, and anytime you hear second opinions, you get kind of worried. And then it went from that to Monday, which was will miss some time, unclear about the injured reserve at that point. Then they go from that to your Tuesday involvement with injured reserve. Can't say I'm surprised. Was hoping that it was just going to be a 1 or 2 game absence based off of the description of the injuries that I had heard. So here we go again. No Michael Thomas, an unfortunate run of injuries for him. Now this would be the 4th season in a row he's had to go on some form of injured reserve. Sounds like he'll be back, but let's be real. He is 30. He is a guy that's had a history of
lower body injuries,
but also this slower recoveries and complicated recoveries. So hopefully this is just a clean matter of get in, get your rehab, get healed, and get out. The earliest he could be back was December 21st, that Thursday night game against the L.A. Rams. That's the earliest. Doesn't mean he's going to be back then. That's the earliest he could come back. And for a team that's been relatively healthy, this is a blow. But let's also be very frank. This team has dealt with his absences for quite some time now, so it's not like this is new to them to not have Michael Thomas available to him. So he has it's a situation where you just got to hopefully he rests, rehabs, recovers, and then returns, because if you want to do anything this season, you're probably going to need him because of his unique skill set.
Speaking of unique skill sets, one of the most important guys on defense, arguably the most important guy on defense, Marshon Lattimore, kind of set to miss time as well. He's obviously not being put on the injured reserve, but he is dealing with something injury-wise too. What do you make there on the defensive front?
Yeah, I mean, he's out. I've been trying to figure out if he's going to hit the injured reserve as well. It didn't happen at the time of this recording of this podcast, this Tuesday podcast. It's different this week, as you know. We didn't do a Monday, we did a Tuesday. That's right. If you are hoping for that new video Monday, well, here we are today making up for that because of our extended absence. So anyway, Lattimore, again, a player they've had to deal with him not being there for quite a bit of time. Last year in particular. He's the guy, elevates the secondary, is the best player in the secondary, was having a good year, got rolled up on. We'll see if he goes to IR. If he goes to IR, obviously, again, it's 4 games, so we'll see. It's looked like an ankle injury. The question with that is, what do you do? They do have some depth pieces in the secondary, and those backup guys have played well. You talk about Isaac Yiadom has played well when given an opportunity. Ugo Amade has played well when given an opportunity. What do you do with Alontae Taylor? Do you keep him inside? Do you go outside in base, inside in nickel? How do you do that? it really goes to show. Well, it probably boils down to what's your best combination. Does in the nickel situation, is it better to have him on the inside and someone like Yadam on the outside, or is it better to keep Taylor outside in base, outside in nickel, have a guy like Amade on the inside or Tyrann Mathieu, whatever the case may be from a secondary standpoint. So to me, that's where the coaching will come in. That's where the strategic schematics will come in. And can the Saints overcome that? Yes, they can, given who they play, given the quarterbacks they play upcoming, and given the schedule that they have, and given the fact that these guys have played well in the past, even without him, and Michael Thomas as well. And by the way, Michael Thomas, I dug up some old archives. When I say archives, it's from last year, because I've been asked a lot, who replaces him, who do they turn to. A lot of people are talking about A.T. Perry, Marquez Callaway. Yeah, absolutely. They'll get their opportunities. Cameron Dancer went from practice squad to elevated to active roster. I know Callaway is on the practice squad, but to me, and I dug up the old quote. And I tweeted it out. It's Juwan Johnson. It's Juwan. He's the guy, and he's the guy that's been a little underwhelming this year. He's the guy everyone thought was going to do well this year. It's been a little slim pickings for him in terms of his opportunity. He's the closest when it comes to Michael Thomas's skill set. And even the Rams game last year, and the Falcons game last year in November, he had 2 touchdowns. The Rams game, he had a touchdown. He caught a touchdown pass right over the goal line, boxed the guy out, made the catch. After the game, he literally said, "That's Mike's route. Since Mike's been out, I've been doing those Mike's routes. I've been the box out guy." So he ain't going to be exactly like Michael Thomas, but get inside the red zone. I think he might become your Michael Thomas type weapon, because Thomas is a close catch guy. He's a guy that doesn't need a whole lot of separation. So if Juwan Johnson can adequately fill, it's not going to be just one guy, because no one can do it exactly like Michael Thomas. But to me, the guy that will most likely resemble his role and get the bulk of his sort of route tree, to me, it's going to be Juwan Johnson.
Hopefully that's the case, because we saw in the offseason how much Derek Carr favored that tight end position.
Yeah.
And maybe that's what...
That's been one of the more disappointing developments of the season, that hasn't come together. I know we missed a couple of games, but it felt like that was going to take off, and it just hasn't yet. So,
and this is a crappy situation, but I mean, at the very least, you're hoping maybe this jump starts Juwan Johnson a little bit.
And honestly, he looked like he was a player that was ready for the jump start, that was ready to really tear into that next level and become a dominant player at that position, because he had really grown into that role. So we'll see, because to me, that's the guy. That's the guy that you incorporate him more. And look, you may see more of. I know you. I can feel the final word feature questions coming. Yes, you may see Jimmy Graham suited up in this game. You may see Jimmy Graham getting more snaps, more reps, and who knows, maybe even more catches as they go forward. Because, look, you're missing, I think he's got 39 receptions, Michael Thomas. So those catches, they've got to all go somewhere. And like I said before, it's not just what he does, it's where he dominates on the field, at 0 to 10 range. Close range, contested catch. Don't need a whole lot of separation. Don't need a whole lot of space. That's the type of catch you're looking for, and hopefully, whoever they use, or a combination of players, they can adequately fill that role.
So usually we start the show with
big picture.
That's right. So obviously we had this Michael Thomas news to talk about. So now we're going to get to this big picture.
We're not going to bury the lead. We went to Michael Thomas first.
Yeah, absolutely. So big picture, post-bye world, Sean. The Saints are essentially starting the season anew at 5-5. How are we feeling?
I mean, I understand the underwhelmed, the kind of whatever, feeling, and the fan base. But the truth is, they're in first place. I mean, what are you supposed to do? If you're the Saints, you got to play it out. You got to try it. You got to keep going. The Saints aren't unplugging. They're not punting on the season. I have told y'all this. I know some of y'all don't want to hear that. And I can't even say you're wrong, that's the better long-term strategy, but they're not doing it. They're not doing it. So we're just not going to live in that alternate reality. I mean, that's something to be debated maybe after the season. But in the season, you're in first place in the NFC South. And also, they have the 7th best record. So even if it wasn't just because of winning the NFC South, they would still sneak in with the 7th best record. Here's the bottom line is this. Look, it hasn't been like this crazy run of success. It's been up and down. But the truth is, through 10 games, they are better this year. They were 3-7 last year at the 10-game mark. They're 5-5 this year. That 2 games is not gonna excite any of y'all. We understand that, and I'm right there with you. It's hard to get fully excited about this team, but they do have whatever they want in front of them, and they don't need help from anyone. When I asked Dennis Allen about that Monday, that was his response to me and all of us. He said, "We're not relying on help from anyone. We can just handle it ourselves." So, if that's indeed the case, then that certainly is good. What's interesting is, DA kind of pointed out what we've been pointing out. It's the role reversal of offense and defense. First 5 weeks, it was the defense carrying the offense. Next 5 weeks, it was the offense carrying the defense.
Perfectly balanced.
If you could just find a way to line that up, you might be able to go on a run, which is really what it's all about. If you can just line it up enough. Not perfect. You don't play anybody. You don't play anybody. If you could just line it up enough, you would be okay.
Just give yourself a chance.
Yeah. So... And look, we've been asked a lot about Derek Carr. Derek Carr's name popped up on the concussion protocol. I'll just say this. When Dennis Allen was specifically naming names when it came to injuries, when we asked him on Monday, he specifically named Marshon Lattimore and Michael Thomas, and he went out of his way to say we should be good everywhere else. He's still in concussion protocol at the time of this podcast, but most guys come out after 9 to 10 days. That would be Wednesday or Thursday. Bottom line, I think it's a strong chance Carr is back on Sunday, and we've done a lot of chat about Derek Carr, where he's at, and Dennis Allen seemed pretty look, he's been overall efficient. It's been overall a good experience, but there are ways he can be better. This is where I fall on it. With Andy Dalton, which they have pretty similar skill sets when you really think about it. They do have similar skill sets, and at one point in their careers, they were 2 guys that were expected to lead a franchise. This is it. Through Andy Dalton experiment, you were 3-7. With Derek Carr, you're 5-5. Again,
you compare
not
their
spectacular.
Numbers.
Not spectacular.
No.
The numbers are pretty similar.
Very similar.
But they've got 2 more wins with Derek Carr. You don't always attribute that to the Derek Carr. It's the slightest difference. That's what it's been. It is nothing to celebrate and go crazy over and pat yourself on the back over it. But objectively speaking, it's just a marginally slightly better version of where they were last season. And that slightly better version could theoretically or possibly or even realistically get them into the postseason, which is where they wanted to get to this year. As ugly as it's looked at times and as so checked out this fan base seems to be at times, they are where they are, and the record is what the record says it is. And Derek Carr has been the exact quarterback you would expect of a 5-5 team. He's been very Derek Carr, and for better or for worse, looks like they're going to roll with that for the remainder of the season.
Any final thoughts as we head into this Week 12 week here, Sean?
Yeah, hopefully we'll get some clarity on some guys tomorrow at practice. The first availability to us will be tomorrow when it comes to practicing and prepping for Atlanta, a team that they've played well against last season, a team that I think they played them right out of the bye last year and were able to win that game in the Superdome. This one's obviously in Atlanta. We'll get a little more into that matchup. I guess tomorrow's Wednesday. Maybe tomorrow's podcast. And
we are doing 3 this week.
And then we'll go from there. And look, it's a big week, and you can't stumble out of the gate. No. You cannot stumble out of the gate, out of the bye, because if you lose this game, man, gosh, it'd just be like, come on, man. This is a terrible division. The football gods have given you another opportunity. Take advantage. Yep. So please take advantage, Saints. We'll see.
The history is on the Saints' side coming out of the bye.
Yeah.
For Sean Fazende, I'm Vasilios. We'll talk to you guys next time.